Start. Call the meeting to order. So as been per our arrangements in the Planning Commission meetings, to start off, we have to read out our mode of operation due to COVID. So I'll read the rules and then we'll proceed with the meeting. So good evening. This is the regularly scheduled July 22nd meeting of the Geneva Planning and Zoning Commission. I am Scott Stocking, the chairman of this commission. Tonight, for the benefit of those audience, I'm joined by Community Director David DeGroot and City Planner Chayton Crew. I have other commissioners present here in City Hall. Mim Evans, Anna Miskill, and Michael Slifka is here in City Hall. And then we have two remote commissioners today, John Mead and Tim Moran. To accommodate public participation, the City of Geneva meetings are now a combination of in-person and virtual, while also being live streamed to allow public to hear all discussion, testimony, and roll call votes in real time. Virtual attendees may watch or participate in live stream meeting by accessing the link provided on the meeting agenda found on the city's website at www.geneva.il.us. Attendees wishing to provide written public comment may continue to do so during the meeting by sending email to publiccomment@geneva.il.us. For more information about the meeting or procedures or providing public comment, please see notice regarding meeting and public comment rule modification due to COVID-19, a link to which is provided on the agenda for this meeting this evening. With our use of the virtual meeting platform tonight, there may be some technical difficulties as we move through the agenda, so please bear with us. This evening, we will begin new business agenda with item 5A, a concept review for Geneva Townhomes. As a reminder, the Planning and Zoning Commission will not formulate a recommendation on the proposed development at this time. The conceptual review provides the Commission and the public with an opportunity to ask questions, provide informal review comments, and convey any concerns they may have. Following the concept review, the Commission will hold two public hearings. The first public hearing for requested variations as special use for the Malone Funeral Home and proposed parking lot expansion. The second public hearing will be for a proposed text amendment to the subdivision regulations related to a proposed update to the fair market value per acre of land. Every individual desiring to listen and or participate in the public hearings have been provided that opportunity through participation information included in various public notices and the agenda for this meeting. Public hearing notices with the same information regarding items 6A and 6B were also published in the Daily Herald on July 7th, 15 days prior to the opening of the public hearing. All interested parties are invited to present testimony for or against the petition and cross-examine witnesses presenting testimony for or against the petition. At this point, I will describe the public hearing proceedings with the Planning and Zoning Commission for those of you who are not familiar with the process. Again, these procedures specifically apply to public hearings at tonight's meeting pertain to items 6A and 6B, I'm sorry. Each petitioner will first present supporting documentation or exhibits for the record. Following the presentation of information, the commission members will have the first opportunity to ask the petitioner questions. After initial questions by commission members, the public will have an opportunity to present testimony for or against the application and cross-examine the petitioner. The public participants may provide testimony either through written comments or by speaking at the meeting. All members of the public providing evidence and testimony are subject to cross-examination by other members of the public and or the commission. Members speaking during the public hearing agree and understand that anything they say will be considered sworn testimony and affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Members of the public attending in person will have the first opportunity provided for new public testimony, followed by the virtual audience. Using the sign-in sheet at tonight's meeting, we will call upon individuals in the order as they appear on the sign-in sheet. In the event that not all members of the public have presented desired testimony during the allotted time at this evening's meeting, the public hearing may be continued at a future meeting. Members of the virtual audience who wish to speak will be asked to use the raised hand feature in the virtual meeting platform. Audience members will then be called on, unmuted, and given an opportunity to comment. We ask that you state your name and address when it is your turn to speak. If you speak multiple times, please state your name each time. If your comment has already been made, your question has already been asked, it is not necessary to repeat it. Remind members of the public to refrain from veering off topic and direct comments to the subject matter. After providing comment, virtual speakers will be muted once again. Please note that there may be a slight delay in becoming unmuted and being able to begin speaking. All comments will be recorded so that written transcripts and minutes can be prepared of this meeting. Just a reminder that all speakers are asked to present their comments in a respectful and courteous manner. Following the end of public testimony, the petitioner will have an opportunity to answer questions and respond to any comments made from members of the public. The public hearing will then be closed, followed by the commission's deliberation on the requests. In order to help background noise, we remind all commissioners joining virtually to mute themselves except when they are addressing the commission. Commissioners joining virtually should also state their name prior to speaking and providing roll call votes to better assist our record keepers, for instance, stocking aye, nay, or sustain. Okay, so that's how we'll proceed. Hopefully everybody got that. And with that, Celeste, will you please call the roll?
Okay. Evans?
Here.
Holloman?
She's
Madaskill?
Madaskill here.
Okay. Mead?
Mead here.
Thank you. Mead?
Mead here.
Slivka?
Slivka here.
Thank you. Slivka? Thank you. Stocking?
Stocking aye. I was here.
And Moran? Mr. Moran, are you here? We can't hear you. I see you, Mr. Moran, but I don't hear you. But you do have a quorum.
Okay. He is present. All right. Okay, so with that, we're going to go on to item number 3, the approval of the agenda for this evening's meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the agenda. Slivka?
Second, Evans.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. And then the next item is the approval of the minutes of July 8th, 2021 commission meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the minutes, July 8th, 2021. Slivka?
Second, Madaskill.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. So we'll move on to the items on our agenda. There are 3 of them, 2 public hearings and a concept review. The first item is the concept review. It's for Geneva Townhomes, a request for conceptual review of a proposal to redevelop the former Citron property. The concept includes a total of 53 townhome units between 11 buildings on the site and would incorporate an extension of the street from Hamilton to Peyton Street and a multi-use path from State Street to Peyton Street, or from State Street to Peyton Street, I'm sorry. The location is the northwest corner of West State Street and Richard Street, and the applicant is Caros Capital LLC and Ryan Homes. I don't think there's anything for the record on this. We just basically hear, right? So, gentlemen, we're here to hear. Let's go.
We have a fellow colleague that is on his way.
Okay.
He was less a car today, so he's
Delayed.
He is a little delayed, but he's coming. So, thank you all for taking the time for us this evening, and happy summer. I'm Jace Murray with Murray Commercial. We have Scott Shelton here with Ryan Homes as well to share some comments as well. And Jake Finley should be popping in here behind me momentarily. Jake started this process back in 2018, which I think many of you are aware of with the prior concept. And over the years and through that process, several things have evolved in time, and what you have in front of you tonight are various ideas to bring to you for comment and consideration in revising the plan. We've been through months, years of deliberation and engineering and cost analyses and the like, and market analyses of such. And unfortunately, that initial concept, the economics, it's quite simply just.
Sir, just to clarify, the initial concept, you're talking about Hamilton Place, or?
The Hamilton Place, yes.
Okay, because there've been a couple concepts on this site.
Good. Sorry. So the initial concept,
The last concept.
yes.
Okay,
that-
so
that
the
was in front of
Hamilton
you.
Place concept, okay.
Correct. That, as David pointed out in his summary, that PUD has expired, understandably so. And Jake is here with us. So we spent time with staff more recently, in recent months, sharing why that prior concept wasn't feasible, why some other concepts we reviewed weren't feasible from a more dense product type. And now, over more the last year or so, and working with Ryan Homes, we have an opportunity that we think is market feasible, economically feasible, and bring quality product to Geneva to support the economics in downtown. So I'll share this with my partner here, Jake Finley. Do you have any comments as well to share, or do you have our presentation, correct? So maybe we get right to the site plan, then open for questions that I'm sure you all will have.
Yeah, you can walk us through it. That's the whole point of this, just to understand the concept that you're trying to go for.
Do we want to start here,
There
gentlemen?
we go. Are we able to drive from this?
You can
From
just
here?
tell me to
Just tell you where to
continue
go?
to move on, and I can do my best to get through that.
Can't read out. Did I print? Yeah. So these were just some quick, high-level bullet points that you have in front of you that we were highlighting to speak to. And I touched on several of them already. And we've had, 3 years in the making to get to where we are today. In that process, we've noted, we've had ourselves as well as CBRE engaged to help represent the property in talking with other national builders, other developers, even in the commercial sector as well. The initially approved mixed-use plan, it kind of commented already that the economics just didn't support what was designed and anticipated for the vision. To develop that initial scope, we would have had to be moving those units at over $1 million, and there's just not a market for that. The demand, there was, in the front of that, there was a mixed-use building with 2 floors of apartments, and then 5,000-ish or so commercial retail. Again, we weren't getting any traction on the commercial retail component, and the cost of construction to build that building, it wasn't feasible on a spec basis by any means. So it was tough to make those economics work on that as well. We vetted thoroughly the opportunity to go to a higher density type project with apartments, including the Burgess Norton piece. But that would require parking deck development. And I'll touch on it. I think there's probably a reason why Marquette back in the day was up over that 220, 230? 230,
Which was
some odd
another
units.
concept on this site,
Pardon me?
which was another concept.
Which
on
was
this
maybe, yes. So
site.
there
The
have been
one prior
various.
to the Hamilton Place.
Right, various iterations, correct. So we vetted that quite well too, with about 171 units, if that would work, and spent significant time and energy on that, and that was not feasible either. So that's what really brought us to where we are today. Again, in more recent months, working with Scott and Ryan Homes, coming up with a site plan with a townhome development concept that economically can work. And that's, if you want to scroll down to that, maybe that initial site plan for the townhomes. you go. So we have a couple, really two different plans showing all townhomes, showing one area with the amenity along the bike path to the east, and another one having the amenity area in the middle. So I anticipate many questions. We're here to help consult and comment accordingly.
Do you want to go through each of the three concepts just real quick? I can scroll through those if you want to add any details.
Scott,
Or
would you like to share any thoughts on footprint?
Sure. I'm familiar with two of the concepts.
Two of these.
Not so much the third, but my name's Scott Shelton with Ryan Homes. Appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. Ryan Homes is a national publicly traded home builder, fourth largest builder in the country. We build across the greater Chicagoland area. Been in the Chicago market since 2011. Be excited to be a part of the town. We've built in Geneva before, prior, not certainly the downtown area, but more the suburban area, and doing some ranch product that was out there off of Peck Road. And would be excited to be back here. We've had some experience in some of these, what we call infill projects, downtown corridors, currently building something very similar in downtown Mount Prospect, having great success there currently with a project that's open for this very similar type of a product, some similar floor plans. So this here was 53 units, and we attempted to orient this such that you get the front-facing elevations, obviously off of State Street and off of Richard Street. We tried to minimize the impact of the building to the industrial building to the north by facing those units such that really just one end unit would be adjacent to that building. We tended to try to put our open space, that amenity area to the east, really bordering along the retail that's to the east, really kind of screening that. We feel like it's important for our residents. You'll see we did provide an aerial and maybe a street view to kind of provide a little bit of better perspective that I think would show that a little bit better, to really kind of screen off that area. We feel would be important for the type of housing that we're building here, because these would be, rather luxury townhomes, and so important to make sure that that's well screened from the retail that's to the east, and so therefore provided to provide a buffer and obviously connect the bike path up and trail up through the eastern side of the property. So we feel like it's a good plan. It's a livable plan. Obviously, the part of the benefit it certainly is being able to walkability to the many amenities that you have here. And so therefore we felt that the density was sufficient to provide some open space and parking, but at the same time utilize the space that it is in the surrounding area with the walkability to the local amenities. So happy to answer any questions about the residential component. I think you want to talk about the one that has the Plan C had a little bit more of a commercial.
Yeah, if you want to go to the last plan, this was one that was more recently pulled together just to demonstrate if there's an opportunity to land a drive-through type tenant with a commitment, I'd say an economical long-term lease, that could be an option to bring a single-story type product to the front of the parcel with a drive-through component. So we added that again for consideration and comment as well. Anecdotally, I can just share, again, the last 3 years in working through this with Jake and Rolf, myself, and our engineers and like, this is a very challenging site. Oh, sorry. It's a very challenging site with infrastructure, dealing with all the utilities, stormwater management. Being at a small site, those numbers escalated quite quickly. So that's, again, another reason why we're here tonight, to look at this opportunity where we can make the economics work.
Does it still have some reclamation that needs to be done?
It does. And there's still scope that we're, once we have a better, clear vision of what we're doing, then how to do that last cleanup that's necessary.
Anything else?
Miss anything?
I just want to, sorry, Jake Finley, Karis. Just on that last question, which it's consolidated back to the area closest to the north where those 3 townhomes are, and so it would be part of the infrastructure when that would be fully remediated. Okay. I'm gonna bring up the perspectives.
Yeah, I'll have to quit sharing my screen and pull it up and then bring it back on, so
Okay.
we can continue.
Maybe just leave that up for other questions.
Any questions? Comments?
I've got a couple questions. What size and as far as square footage wise and price point were you guys looking at?
Yeah, these units are roughly between 2,000 and 2,100 square feet. We expect that they, depending on the lumber prices at the time, will probably start with a 4 and end with a 5, or maybe a 6, but that's probably where we would expect them to be.
And would you plan on doing the construction in phases based upon pre-sale, or how would the construction work?
Yes, so these would not be spec'd. We would build the whole building, obviously, well, a building at a time, but we would, pre-sell them in advance prior to the construction of the given building.
What's the pro forma as far as timeline for sellout?
So with 53 units, I mean, we would estimate that that's probably a little under 2 years.
Okay. And then as far as the concept C with the drive-through, was your thought that there might be some interest in like a QSR type end user for that one, or is there some other thought as far as who would the retail tenant would be for that?
Yeah, good question. To be honest, I mean, it's someone like Starbucks, I think, and that's,
Yeah.
I wish we had 13 names to rattle off,
Right.
but that's certainly the one that we were thinking. And so with Scott's plan, as he mentioned, over 24 months, we would start from the north, move to the south, which also frees up some time for, someone else like that.
Yeah. Oh, it's excellent. Well done. I like the idea of having some multiple concepts as far as more urban and modern and something a little more of the craftsman style. So you guys did a nice job. Looks really good. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there any outdoor space that's unique to each unit, balconies or ground level outdoor space anticipated?
So the balconies are on the rear.
On the rear, so that's
Yeah,
fine.
so
Okay.
they're all rear-loaded townhomes, so the balconies would be on the rear. And then what's shown here is some green space here to the east, kind of connecting to the path. What we've seen in other townhome, units is probably like a small dog park, things of that nature, is that tends to be pretty popular for that type of use.
And the commercial space is only viable as a drive-through? There's not any other commercial concept that you think?
I can comment that to a degree, being in the industry. Our firm is Murray Commercial in St. Charles, and we work in this market from a brokerage perspective as well. And again, when we looked at that first building with the mixed use, the demand, we weren't getting the demand for that space. I mean, granted, it's 5,000's not a significant amount of space, and to underwrite a building of that capacity, you need that quality tenant, long-term lease structure as well, and we were getting no traction in that lane. So I think the most viable, if any, would be something of this sort. That would be a single tenant, maybe 2 tenant type product, single story to make the economics work, but then having that credit tenant as well.
And did you look at putting 7th through, running that through? I mean, that was something that we had talked about in prior versions of this.
Many times.
Yeah, I think the answer was from you. The city's perspective was they didn't want it, right? And so I think that's where the bike path is there to connect, all the way down to Wheeler Park to the downtown and the rest of the city.
Is it all private access? There's no public road or anything? It's all private drive to the parking areas?
Yes.
Yeah, the association would maintain all that.
Yes.
That's all. Thank
Anything
you.
else? Michael, you have anything?
Yeah, just a few comments. I thought, on the buildings, I thought the designs were attractive. They would work well individually or maybe even combined on the site. You know, I thought the density was, you know, seemed reasonable here. We were in favor of a lesser density before, a little bit different product, but you know, the drive-through, I have to admit, it really starts to kind of deviate from the plans, from the comprehensive plan. And it's a pretty big building, way too big for a Starbucks, and so what do you do with the rest of it? If it's a sit-down restaurant, you know, probably need more parking. So and it really takes away from that street wall, so.
Yeah, so just to be, I think that was just a option B for us. Option A would be all townhomes.
Sure, I guess I would agree that,
Okay.
you know, I prefer, prefer those options, so. You know, the commercial question is kind of tough. I mean, because you know, today maybe it's harder, and maybe 2 years it's not, and, you know, once it's not commercial, it'll never be commercial. So, you know, maybe that eliminates that option. But I'm not opposed to residential on the first floor in that location. I think, you know, you have across the street, single-family homes, a block over, you have single-family homes. So, so I think that's a possibility. I like the layout of A better for a couple reasons. One, I liked that the park wasn't internal and enclosed by the rest of the buildings. And there was a lot of paving in B, it seemed like, a lot of paving inside that you know, just to get cars around. So, so as I look at those, that's, you know, those were my thoughts.
Thanks for your input. Appreciate it.
John, do you have something?
Yeah, a few things. I agree almost to a T with Mr. Commissioner Slifka on all aspects, density, appearance. I don't think I'm as ready, though, to walk away from commercial on state. I think preserving the commercial on state today, for me, is important. And I really, really liked the multifamily above commercial. I know that that's being stated is not economical at this time, but I think that should be explored as this comes together. I'd like to see that explored a little bit more. I'm not currently in the industry, being retired, but I would say for a project of this size, commercial space of this size, it'd be unusual to be a year or two out and talking about any pre-leasing. Once the building's under construction or built, I think that's when tenants of this size that want to be near downtown Geneva would show some interest in the property. So I don't think not having interest in pre-leasing today would disqualify. If I was building this, considering building commercial on that side. Something you guys, the applicants might not be aware of is I'd like, when this comes forward, if it comes forward, like some discussion as to how or why, how affordable an affordable component could be included here. We have a defined interest as a city in seeing our new housing stock carry an affordable component, say 15%. The state's targeted level is 10%. We're short of that, so to get to 10%, we need a greater component. If that doesn't work, I think you need to demonstrate why that doesn't work at this site, whether it's economics or something else, but we're talking 15%, we're talking 8 units. If there's a building along state, we're talking about that building maybe having less quality finishes or something and selling at a lower price point so folks that are making 80% of the median income or something can afford to buy here and be near downtown. What else? Do you guys own the site now? I'm just curious.
Yes, we do.
You do, okay. Do you mind sharing, is the nature of the remediation purely soil or has it gotten into groundwater?
Purely soil.
Just purely so, okay. That's what I was anticipating. We just have had, the previous applicant was shy to talk about the nature of it, but that's what I was expecting. And so I saw it quantified in a budget, and I thought that was a reasonable amount if it was just, you know, to do it, to finish the remediation and clean up if it was just soil and not in groundwater. What else did I have? All around the site, you have a perimeter screening, and I'm just curious, especially toward on the Richard Street toward the single-family residences that are your neighbors. What's the nature of that screening in your mind?
Yeah, the screening really is landscaping.
Okay,
And
okay.
it's on both sides, particularly on the, a little bit heavier on the east side next to the retail.
Okay, that makes sense. I just didn't, I didn't want screening to be a vinyl fence or something, and that would not be promoting, you know, cohesiveness to the neighbors and everything else. So I think that makes sense. So anyway, I guess to summarize, what I would struggle with today is signing up for pure residential on state and without further really pushing the numbers and really seeing if there could be some component of residential above commercial on the State Street side. And frankly, that could be the affordable component if that would work. But you guys have to push the numbers, and you know what your investment is and know what the costs are, but I'd like to see that demonstrated if this comes back.
Okay. Tim, I believe you're with us. I just don't see you on camera, so.
Yeah, I'm having some difficulties. I apologize. Earlier, you could see me and not hear me. Now I guess you can hear me and not see me. I'll leave it to you to decide which of those is a better option.
Take the voice.
Most of my thoughts,
Go ahead.
most of my thoughts have been
Oh, now we're losing your voice.
covered. I agree with Commissioner Mead.
Tim, you're breaking up. We're
Can
gonna,
you hear me? I'm sorry.
can you, do you have another microphone you could use possibly? I don't know what
I
how
think
your
I'm
setup
fading
is.
out again, so
Oh, they're recommending that you just call in?
yeah, I passed.
Okay. Well, while you do that, I'll have my
Yeah.
comments.
Go ahead and guess I'd be, I just I'd fix.
Hey, Tim.
I gotta try.
Tim, go ahead and try to call in on your
Thank you.
telephone if you can. And then we'll have Chairman Stockings provide his comments while you do that, and we'll get you set
Okay,
up.
let me go ahead and do that.
All right, thanks, Tim. Appreciate it. So I would, this site's I've been on the commission, I don't know, a long time. And this site's been through numerous concepts, so we've seen the gamut. We saw the, the huge apartment complex, which was never gonna fly, the Marquette project. We saw the Hamilton Place project, which we were really excited about. I mean, that was a really good concept from at least a planning perspective. Might not have been a financial project, but from a concept from the planning commission and the council, a lot of people in the city was very enthusiastic, particularly for this site because it did not have a good history. So we understand it's a challenging site. We understand the economics of it is challenging. That said, I'm going to echo what some of the other commissioners saying is that I would like to see an affordable housing component of something
Unmuted.
on this site. Would not necessarily give up the commercial on state. I could give up the commercial with a little more affordable housing. So if you put that on, along State Street in a apartment, even concept, could be condos, could be apartments, just some kind of affordable component, particularly in the downtown area, would be huge for us. So I like to see that further explored, run the numbers. I know you said that you ran apartment numbers and it just didn't work out. And obviously apartment package would be easier to put an affordable component in as part of the project. So dealing with townhomes, it's a harder deal. You gotta deal with, you got apartments on site with high-end townhomes. I understand that mix, but if it's well done, if you've done it with some open space and how the design is, it could work, you know, given they're fronting on a larger building, fronting State Street, provide sound barriers and other things for the rest of the development. So, you know, even a relatively large structure there would be something we would look at. So, again, I think that's what, you know, we understand it's a chilling site. We appreciate you're putting a path through there. That's great. That's consistent. That's wonderful. So, you know, I think though we'd like to see a little bit more evidence if you come back before us, like you've looked at it and here's why we can't do it. Okay, Tim, do you have anything? Is Tim?
I'm on the phone. Can you hear me at this point?
I can. It's much better.
I apologize. My camera is completely shut down, so I'll just talk from the phone. And at the risk of repeating what the other commissioners have said, I agree with what Commissioner Meade said, that I'm not in a hurry to jettison the concept of commercial with residential above on 38. I do understand price break points, and there's been a lot of time and background study and finance put into this, but I'd like to see that explored as well. And I would say that I also agree that I like the concept A, where the amenities and the park benches are outside next to the path as opposed to inside the development itself. But I think my other issues have been covered by the other commissioners. So I know this is a conceptual plan and there's a long way to go. So it's fluid, and I look forward to seeing how it goes.
All right, thank you, Tim. Any other comments from the commissioners? All right, hearing none, thank you very much, gentlemen. We appreciate your time and your presentation.
Thank you.
Oh, and there might be some public comment, but is there anyone online that, there's anybody here that's to speak on this matter? Ah, we do have a gentleman. Sorry, gentlemen. Please state your name and address, please.
Thank you for the opportunity. Demir Latinovich, 228 Richards, Geneva. Thanks again for the opportunity. You know, this was not noticed, so that's probably why there's not a lot of public coming to this. If you want to put up a site plan, maybe the concept A that everybody was talking about. So, you know, it's a little disheartening, you know, after everything we've gone through on this site, to see a proposal but a drive-through downtown Geneva. It's quite unbelievable. But hopefully, I think most of the commissioners have said enough about that concept that we don't have to kind of talk about that. I mean, it is downtown Geneva. You know, how many other drive-throughs are downtown Geneva? I think we all know the answer to that. I think what's kind of good about this latest proposal is the concept of row homes. Okay, not necessarily townhomes, so the front-loaded product, but the rear-loaded product, which would be the row homes, which is a really good concept for a semi-urban site such as this. And I think with any proposal, that's a good solution, sort of a transitional use between the downtown, everything along State Street, and then residential uses further to the north and west. So a row home concept is a good idea. It really is. And I want to credit them for that. And I know Ryan Homes does they have a lot of good products. They do a really good job. And I know they can deliver. What's concerning is the lack of understanding for this concept of a semi-urban site and what really row home is. It's a product that fronts on a street, not a product that fronts on a parking lot, on a bike path, on anything other than a street. So if you want to put up the concept A or B, whichever one you want, I think half of the buildings have no place in this site plan. There is, and I can't see the numbers, but essentially the buildings that are along Richard Street are the buildings that are appropriately situated along the street. So that's the front of that building, the front door of each unit faces the street. That's how it's supposed to be. That's how it's supposed to be designed. That's common sense. The garages are in the back. However, you have the buildings 4, 5, 7, and 8 that are kind of tucked in behind the other buildings. That is a recipe for disaster. Out of mind, out of sight. I understand the product, as they indicated, would be a luxury product, but who's going to live tucked behind 2 other buildings in there and pay a luxury price for that? It just makes no sense. So that is very disheartening that there's lack of understanding for a semi-urban site that needs to front on a street. Now, what they could do is make a street connection, as they suggested here, that sort of follows the potential 7th Street right-of-way and then makes a turn and connects to I believe it's, I forgot the name of the street there, but it's just south of Peyton. That can be a street that goes through the concept, and then you have additional row homes that face that street. So instead of 4 and 5 facing each other, one of those buildings may be appropriate facing a street to the south, to the right. That would be the extension of, I think it's Harrison Street that goes east-west there. Same thing with that building 7. That building 7 would then actually face that street, not the back of that building. See, those are the garages. That's not appropriate. It would be the front of that building needs to face that street. But then you have to provide an alley in the back to access the garages, but that's what you do if you want to have a row home product. The idea of row homes on State Street is, again, it's hard to understand. There's 30,000 cars go down State Street, and somebody's going to have a front door there on State Street. That's just unbelievable. They were specifically asked last time they came forward for a product that had a mixed-use project on State Street, that they are really committed to that building, that is their site, they want to invest in that. They're in the community, and there's no reason not to believe them. But you can't just walk away from that idea. We all know what's appropriate for that site, and that's the mixed-use product, commercial on the ground floor, upper-level residences. And if financially that product doesn't work with 3 stories, maybe add a story, maybe add a 4th story to that. Maybe add a ground floor garage or something like that. But don't walk away from the mixed-use concept and a high-density building that really belongs in that corner. And in addition to that, if you have a product like that, you're providing diversity of housing throughout your project. So you can provide some affordable housing in that one building. You can provide units on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th floor that you can access with an elevator. All of these other units are walk-up units. They're not for anybody that wants to age in place. They're priced out of this. So those are some really key things to a concept like this that somebody like Ryan Holmes, they know how to propose a site plan with buildings facing a street. That's as basic as it can get. So it could be on the right track, but probably half of the plan has no place in this location. And then the buildings 1, 2, and 3 up there, that's kind of an afterthought. None of them really face a street. Not even the one that's adjacent to Peyton is parallel to Peyton. You kind of scratch your head like, what's going on here? I think there's a lot that can be done here. There's potential, but I think the mixed-use building at State Street and Peyton, perhaps you do an L-shaped building, make it twice as large, do whatever it's needed to make it financially work, because that's the main piece of this whole development. And you guys had indicated you're going to start north and then move south. Instead of starting at the most visible point of your project, you're going to start with the last one that nobody's going to see. Some of these things are just, you scratch your head and you're like, it's a challenging site, but it's also a very good site. So I hope they come to a right answer. I think the product is not bad. I think you have to draw from other products in downtown Geneva, but I think they can find some elements in those elevations. So I think I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else present here in City Hall that wishes to speak on this? All right, if not, I'm going to go to the virtual audience. So if anyone is online who's seeing this meeting and wishes to speak, please use your raised hand function on your application and you'll be recognized. We're not seeing anybody, so I'll give you one last chance. Anybody online who wishes to speak on this application, or not application, concept review? Nope. All right.
Hey,
So-
Scott,
Yes.
it's Commissioner Mead. Two things. Thank you to that last gentleman. I thought those are some thoughtful comments worth considering both for us and for the applicant. He mentioned the appropriateness of residential over commercial and the drive-through. I highlighted that I was supportive of commercial and really still married to residential over commercial. I want to talk a little bit more strong. I don't think I could ever get behind a drive-through lane running along State Street right there. So the drive-through would be really hard for me to get comfortable with in any scenario. Just wanted to say that for their benefit.
Yeah, no, I agree. From my personal perspective, a drive-through at that location is a no-go. I think some of his gentleman's comments on the being row house, if it's a row house concept on a street, it's very valid. Even if it's just a private street, I understand you've got a lot of geometry issues with the parking and accessing the parking areas and underneath the units and stuff, and but that's why we hire good people. Good people can figure that stuff out. So, but it is valid. It would definitely make the interior of the site work better and, quite frankly, sell better. So I appreciate those comments. Thank you.
Right.
All right. Any other comments? Follow up? Gentlemen, anything else? Think you got what you need? All right. Very good. Thank you again for coming in. Appreciate it. All right. So let's move on to our public hearings. So our first public hearing is 6A. It's for a special use and variation. It's a request for a special use to allow the continued use of a funeral home and to expand the associated parking lot, in addition to the variations from section 11-6E-4B to decrease the required minimum street yard setback from 30 feet to 8 feet 6 inches, and to increase the maximum allowable lot cover from 70% to 74.3%. And the location is 314, 324 East State Street, and the applicant is Dennis Malone of Malone Funeral Home. And I think we have some things in the record.
Yes, sir. All right, so the contents of this file include an application for variations and a special use concurrently filed by Dennis Malone dated November 4th, 2020, with revisions on March 16th, 2021 and May 28th, 2021. This applications included the following items: project narrative, applicant's response to variation standards, applicant's response to special use standards, engineering and site plans, the Kane DuPage Soil and Water Conservation District Land Use Opinion Application, City of Geneva Stormwater Management Permit Application, Kane County Road Impact Fee Application, legal description, and boundary and topographic survey. Also included in the contents of this file is an application review comments from city staff dated January 8th, 2021, April 21st, 2021, and June 22nd, 2021. A copy of the letter to all property owners within 500 feet providing notice of the application being filed, a certification of publication from the Daily Herald for the legal notice that was published on July 7th, 2021 for tonight's public hearing, a copy of the public hearing notice mailed to all property owners within 500 feet of the subject property, a staff report from the Community Development Department to the Planning and Zoning Commission dated July 22nd, 2021, and public comments received from Rodney Nelson and Mary Treat. And while I have the floor as well, I do want to mention that there was a minor typo on page 8 of the staff analysis for this application, or for this, on the staff report. This is located on page 8 in the variations section, standard 1A, setback variation. It states the required parking lot setback in the street yard of properties within the B3E business district shall be no less than 30 feet. The applicant is seeking to construct the proposed parking lot with a street yard setback of 8.5 feet, a reduction of 11.5 feet. That would actually be a reduction of 21.5 feet instead of 11.5 feet.
All right, very good. All right, on the record, gentlemen. Your
Thank you, Chairman. My name is, and Commissioners, my name is Jim Olguin. I'm from the Buchan Law Office. Our address is 15 Salt Creek Lane in the village of Hinsdale. Also here with me this evening are Dennis Malone, the owner of Malone Funeral Home, and Dan Olson from Watermark Engineering, the project engineer, and they prepared the plans that are before you this evening. It's actually very exciting to be here in person. It's one of my first in-person meetings that I've had. So although I've been doing presentations, this entire year, this is the first time or one of the first times I've had to actually stand up and present at the same time. So Dennis has been instructed if I start leaning just to push me back up, and and we'll keep on going. So as was mentioned by staff, tonight we're here on a public hearing for some approvals related to the Malone Funeral Home. And the Malone Funeral Home, I believe Dennis mentioned that it was, has been at that location since 67? 64. Or 64. So it's, it's been at that location for, well over, 50 years. And one of our requests is to get a special use for that particular use, which, it obviously has been a continuing use at that location, for this entire time. So as to that request, we've submitted responses to the special use standards, and we can go over those if you have any questions regarding any of those responses. But I think from a overall review of what we're asking for, we're essentially asking for that the existing use be formally approved, after 50 plus years. The other components of our request are related to a couple of variations. Those variations are related to the parking lot that is part of this proposal that would be constructed on an adjacent property to the existing Malone funeral home. So the variations that we're discussing apply to that parcel. And one of the things that we did, we were looking at the property is to try to determine, obviously to comply with all of the city's requirements, but because of the configuration of the lot, the size of the lot, the setback that would apply under the zoning classification, and the need to meet with all the other city requirements, like for example drive aisle widths within the parking lot, there was going to be a need that for some kind of deviation in one direction or another. And we felt that these would allow us to provide the benefits that we'll discuss while minimizing the overall impact on adjacent properties and further the use that we're proposing. For example, we are looking for a reduction in the setback, but what we are doing, and Dan will discuss, is we are really providing additional landscaping along the perimeter so as to make the site very visually appealing for any of those folks that are driving by or are living in the vicinity. We believe that if obviously all of you are familiar with the Malone Funeral Home and know the quality of the landscaping he presently has at his current location and the maintenance that that he's able to that he continues to maintain just because of his desire to have a quality location for the people that attend his facility. So what I'd like to do is just to, before Dan gets into some of the specifics of the project, just go over some of the key benefits of what we're requesting. First is safety. One of the things that this approval of the special use and the variations would allow us to do is to construct a parking lot on that adjacent parcel. And what that would allow us to do is to provide a safe parking area for the folks that visit the Malone Funeral Home. Obviously, some of the people that go to the funeral home are elderly, some of them are handicapped, and to provide for a place that they can park, that we maintain in terms of snow removal, making sure that it's safe for them to cross and enter the facility, is a good use for that property versus forcing them to park on the street or further away on property that we might have some parking agreements with. So we believe that that's a key element that would really benefit the folks not only that come to Malone Funeral Home, but also the people that reside in the area, because we're able to bring people who would otherwise be forced to park on the street and bring them onto the site. Another benefit, and this is something that was noted on the comprehensive plan, is you want to minimize entrances onto State Street. And by allowing this project to move forward, we would take that that existing building and possible use and the entrances that are currently located there, and we'd be removing those. So we are not planning as part of this project to increase the operational capacity of Malone Funeral Home. The only thing that we're doing is we're adding parking to service the existing use, so we're not expanding, we're not adding rooms, we're not doing anything. So this would just be a additional benefit to the people that are already going there versus creating additional traffic, which would be something that you would have to be concerned about if this property, if this adjacent property were to be used for something else that would require also these additional or these existing curb cuts to remain on State Street. So because of that, I think we are putting forth or going forward one of the requirements or one of the desires of the comprehensive plan. Also, by removing that building, I think we are improving the visual nature of the area. We're removing a structure that it does impede the light and air, which is one of the items that that is up for consideration for the area. And we are putting some very aesthetic landscaping and other material that Dan will discuss, which we think will be beneficial for the residents in the area and anybody who's driving through State Street. With that, I'm going to turn this over to Dan to go through and discuss some of the plan comments or the plans for the site. I will come back up and discuss some of the comments that were received online or via email and go through some of those at Dan's conclusion. Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. I'm Dan Olson with Watermark Engineering. We're the civil engineers on the project. And I'm excited to be here in person and go over the project with you. Jim, for being rusty, I thought you did a great job covering all that, so you kind of stole my thunder on some of it. But I want to go through the site plan itself and the landscape plan and talk a little bit about the lighting and touch on some of the variances that we're here requesting and why we need them. First of all, I don't know if we have a copy. Do we have a copy of the site plan we can pull up, or even the landscape plan?
Yep.
I appreciate that. The name of the game here with this proposal is to bring parking on site and to make it a cohesive use and to make it a safe parking area for folks at the funeral home to easily have access to the building. If we can go one more down, should be the site plan. There we go, that's great. So what we were able to do with the proposed site plan is add, bless you, 21 parking stalls to the facility. We're providing both some two-way circulation, some one-way circulation, And we've worked with staff extensively to make sure that we're meeting parking stall requirements, drive aisle requirements, and making that all work, and still making this a viable project for Dennis to be able to make sure he gets the parking that he needs out of this project. So one of the big variances that we're requesting that Jim talked about is the setback variance along State Street. I just want to point out that the setback that we're requesting is consistent with the zoning to the west, directly west of the project, which I believe is a 5-foot parking setback in the zoning, which is D-CM zoning directly to the west. So this is consistent. It's greater than that. Actually, we're 8.5 feet is what we're requesting. In order to mitigate that setback variation, we are providing extensive landscaping, which is consistent with what Dennis has done throughout the site. He does a great job keeping up the landscaping. It's fully landscaped. It's beautiful, brick paver walkways and such. He takes pride in his project. This will be no different. So this will be consistent with that. So there's a stone retaining wall along the frontage, and this is to take up some of the grade change that exists between the parking lot elevations and the sidewalk there. And this allows us, by doing that, it's not only going to be decorative, but it allows us to get more landscaping in there as well, instead of being on a steep slope there. So that's the function of that. Also in the northwest corner is a small pond, and that is consistent with other water features that are on site. So we're looking to create a small seating area and a pond, and that will be blended into the landscaping, and that'll give folks a chance, as they have other locations on site, to be able to sit outside, which is appropriate for this use and a good use of that space. So we think that'll be a real amenity. In addition, we are proposing a fence along the western property line, which will then head south and meet up with the existing fence and brick wall along the southern property line. The southern property line, we're meeting landscape standards as far as setbacks and landscape material in that area. That will be a lot of evergreen material, as you can see in the landscape plan, and in addition to the fencing. Quickly on lot coverage and interior landscape variances that we're seeking, that's a function of making the parking lot work and, as Jim described, meeting the standards for drive aisle widths and things like that. So in order to make that comply, we had to reduce some of the interior landscape. We fit as much as we could in there. One of the challenges too is that there is an underground stormwater detention system currently in place from a previous development. So where we place light poles and trees matters. I can't go down too far in this. So that all impacts the layout that you see there in front of you, but which is why we maximize the landscaping around the perimeter to offset that.
Located? Where's the underground one located?
That is located, if you can see where the shading of the new parking lot stops, and there's some diagonal stalls just to the east of those. It's right underneath those.
Okay.
And it runs basically from island to island, landscape island to landscape island. So that's why we had to locate the light poles where we did. We had to work around that.
So it covers that whole area?
It covers that, yeah, that whole area underneath the existing. There is some existing parking on the west side of the building currently that we're tying into, and it's underneath that right now. While we're on the subject, we have submitted final engineering plans to staff, to your engineering consultant who has reviewed the plans and is on board with what we're proposing. So from a stormwater perspective, we are connecting to the existing system that's there today, and engineering has signed off on that. So meeting all the standards when it comes to the engineering of the site, it's fairly straightforward when it comes to that. Last thing I'll touch on is the lighting for the site. We are requesting relief from the lighting standards that is typically required in this area. And the reason for that request is because there are existing decorative light features, light standards that are on site currently. Our desire is to match those and not have to have mismatching light fixtures. So it would look a little strange to match the letter of the law. These are, I would say, comparable or similar in that fact that they are decorative, and they kind of accomplish that same thing, but they'll be cohesive with the rest of the site. So that's our goal in asking for that variance for that. I think Jim covered the rest of it, certainly available for questions. Last thing I'll touch on again is the driveway. We've talked about that. We're closing that driveway off from the existing building there. And we have reached out to IDOT. They've conceptually approved what we're doing. They like what we're doing because we're closing the driveway. So they're on board with the proposal with our storm connection and the right-of-way and such. So we've reached out to all the appropriate entities and have support in that way. So that concludes the site plan, landscape plan, and lighting plan. I'll be available for questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. With that, I just wanted, I know that there were some comments that were submitted electronically earlier, and we can, delve into them in as much detail as you may want, but I just wanted to go over just a few items. One, I think, some of the claims that were submitted by Dr. Nelson are both legally and factually incorrect. I think his primary contention is that the use of the Malone Funeral Home is not a lawful pre-existing non-conforming use. That is not correct for a few different reasons. Number one, obviously it has been functioning here in the city for over 50 years. We've received various building permits, other approvals from the city. There's actually a formal a settlement agreement that was entered into by the city and Dr. Nelson and Mr. Malone, all agreeing that that the use or that that there was whatever issues they could claim regarding the viability of the use or whether it was correct is has been settled, and the settlement was that that use is permitted at that location in terms of being a non-conforming use. So I think both legally and factually he was incorrect as to that claim. I think also in terms of the ability to grant the approvals that we're requesting, he had some concerns about that. The items that we are requesting are fully well within the authority that you have in terms of making a recommendation to the City Council. What we are asking for is a special use, and he notes that one of the items is whether in all other respects the property is complying. However, that's really a misreading of what the code requires, because if you guys read, or if the city would read the code the way he does, no special use anywhere in the city could ever have a variation at any time, which obviously is not incorrect. By complying with the city code, what that means is if there are variations that are being requested, that they have to come before you and be approved, and that's what we are doing this evening with regards to the items that are being presented. So you do have the ability to grant this special use for this long-standing business here, and also as well as the variations that are being requested. So with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have, and hope for your support.
All right, any questions? Mim?
I have one concerning the lighting.
Sure.
Do you have any examples of the lighting, the difference between
Mim, could you turn on your
Turn
microphone?
on yours. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't see the red light.
I don't see a red light either. Just test it. Could you slide over one maybe? There, that one works. There you go.
Does that work? Is that better? Okay,
Yeah.
so do you have any pictures of the lighting you would install and comparing them to the lighting that the city is requesting?
Yeah, I think we can pull that up. On the photometric plan, I know we show our cut sheet of our
Looking for
proposed
that.
fixtures. I believe that's on there. Is that something we are able to pull up, Chayton?
Yeah.
It's
Gotta
near
find
the
out.
end of the plan set.
Bear with me, everybody.
Yeah, no, sorry to put you on the spot.
No, it's all good.
And then the required ones, I know were in the staff report. I believe that there was cut sheets of the city required fixtures.
4th page from the end.
I think I might have found it. Yeah, okay. Oh, I see why I missed
what
it.
we're
It's
looking
kind of small. So here's my concern, and it really applies to both the setback and the lighting, and I really haven't made up my mind yet on this. I'm just kind of throwing it out there for discussion. East State Street, you know, we've long worked to try to create some kind of cohesive design on that street, and I have to think that that's where the lighting came from, and the setback, trying to make it a little further back off the street, was all intended to try to improve the appearance of the east entrance to Geneva. And it seems to me, and you folks aren't the first ones, that we are asked quite often to in various ways, take a step back from what the original plan was for what this street would look like. It seems to me we're getting to the point where you're not going to accomplish what you said anyway. There's only so much, that hasn't already.
With one of the larger uses on the street.
It
The
is.
funeral home is one of the largest uses on the
So
street.
I'm not sure that this ought to be something that should be a stumbling block. I'm just throwing it out there that we think a little bit about the entire streetscape and the goals for the entire streetscape, and whether the fact that this will be attractive, which I'm sure that the landscaping will be lovely and the wall sounds like a plus and all of that, is a plus that we ought to let go forward, or whether, once again, deviating from the original intent on the street just puts us further back from creating any kind of cohesive east side entry. So I'm just opening that up for discussion.
Certainly part of that's why we created the plan. And
Right.
And the commission's here to enforce the plan or to enact the plan, so, yes.
That's right. So is the plan of greater value than, what we're seeing
Yeah.
here? Thoughts? I'd be interested in anybody's thoughts on that.
Yeah.
Commissioner, if I may, in terms of the lighting, just a couple of other things that might want to consider. One of the differences between what is recommended by the city, they're more, if you did find it in the staff report, they're more sconce type type lights, and then these are much more focused. And back when there was improvements done on the current Malone Funeral Home. Actually, this light that's currently that we would be looking at expanding was something that was a compromise with the city and the adjacent property owners, as far as something that would be more would focus the light more versus something like a sconce type, where it might have at least visually look a little bit more. So just to add some part of the way that we arrived at the current lighting is that was actually a discussion that was done back when those improvements were accomplished a number of years ago.
The city put those in. If I could just, yeah, that was.
Well, that's good to know.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, you want to come forward?
I wasn't going to speak.
I know
but
you
probably
are, but
should.
you
Thank
could-
you,
you could
everyone.
introduce yourself.
That was part of the city. Dennis Malone from the Malone Funeral Home. Again, thank you for being here, letting me be here to speak. When we had, I don't know how to call it, the settlement with Dr. Nelson in '05, the city put those lights in. That's what we agreed upon. So those are city lights, and the city actually helped me pay for those because of the situation with our neighbor. I don't know, David, if you remember that. Yeah.
That was before my time.
Okay, I'm sorry, that's right, you were here. So, yeah, those are city lights. So that's kind of why they approved them, and they actually paid for part of them.
Okay, well, that's good history to know.
Yeah,
'cause
I just thought I
there's
should bring that
nobody on the
up.
commission that knows that, and
Because,
none of the planners know it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's some additional information. Oh, no, obviously, the history is important. And the other part of it too, obviously the other component that you're discussing is, that setback. And, the reason for that setback is from an aesthetic standpoint. And although we are asking for a reduction in the interior landscaping, but which affects really, how it looks for the folks inside our property. But what we are doing is making sure that the landscaping on the perimeter along State Street is going to be visually something very attractive. So although we are asking for that reduction, I think that the goal of making State Street an attractive thoroughfare is something that is being achieved. So we hope that by doing that we are able to to gain your support for that reduction.
Getting back to the lights for a minute, and again, I'm just throwing out ideas. I don't know whether I'm in favor of them or not, but let's throw them out there. Would there be a possibility of putting the lights that are elsewhere along the street to be the ones that are closest to the street, and then go with your existing interior lights elsewhere on the parking lot? That way we would preserve some continuity along the street.
I think, we could.
I think that would take care of the problem, for me anyway. Preserve the street.
Certainly along the streetscape would be.
Right, right. Yeah, that would help.
Yeah.
Put street lights on that, yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, John.
This is Commissioner Mead. I'm following up on that. I appreciate that you bringing that up, Mim. I have I was thinking a lot about the lights because I find myself receptive to the setback at this point, because essentially now the existing parking lot on that new lot at 314 runs all the way to the sidewalk. Then you've got driveway out to the ingress and egress point. So I like the fact that we're getting some landscaping and cutting out an access point to Route 38. I'd like to know from the applicant, how many existing light standards are in the existing parking lot today?
You're going to have to count them.
Yeah, if you give me a minute, I'll take a look.
Well, and then I was going to ask how many are going, how many new ones will there be? Because I find myself thinking along the lines of what Min was saying, but I find myself thinking if the other relief is granted, I think the integrity of the east side State Street landscape is important to all of us. It's important to the city. We wouldn't have developed it. The price to pay to maybe have those other variations is that we have lighting that's consistent with the overall plan. And it might mean that 2 or 3 or 4 lights, whatever it is, I couldn't count them. I think I counted at least 3. But just to replace them and I find myself not supportive right now of the deviation to the light standards.
Okay.
Commissioner, just to clarify, when you say replace, are you talking about on the proposed in the proposed parking area?
I find myself thinking that I'd like to see all the lights on the existing parking lot and the expansion parking lot the same, and they should be consistent with the city's lighting standards.
Commissioner, my concern, which as far as replacing the existing lights, is because of the agreement that was entered into by the city, the Malone Funeral Home and the adjacent property owner. As Dennis mentioned, that the installation of those lights were done as part of that overall agreement. So that's my only concern in terms of going back and replacing those.
Are you inferring that all the parties had to agree on that lighting?
Yes, that was part of the discussions with the city and Mr. Nelson, and that's why those particular lights were installed.
Okay, I understand, and I have to be sensitive to that. Nonetheless, I guess I would be in favor of any new lighting being consistent with the street the city's lighting standards.
John, while you got the floor, might as well keep going if you got any other questions.
Okay. So just to clarify, all of the existing points of access, both ingress and egress to the existing lot, will be operated the exact same way they are today, and those would be the access for the new lot, correct?
Correct.
Okay. As I said, I like the fact that, that we're actually reducing the setback that's on 314 now and eliminating the points of access. I also like the relief that the area streets will obtain from this, this parking lot expansion. I, like many of us or most of us, have been to funerals at Malone, and there are times when I've had to park down the street in Nebraska or around the corner, and this would alleviate some of that, and I think improve the interference or the street noise, quote unquote, of having folks having to park off site. So I like that. The lighting was my main concern. You mentioned, and this is just a secondary point, but you mentioned there's an encroachment from a neighboring property, and that if this is approved, you'll work on a maintenance agreement for that. Can you just explain the nature of that? It's obviously something's encroaching on the 314 site.
Yeah, correct, Commissioner. Adjacent property owner has, has a little bit of other improvements on our parcel. It's not affecting anything that we're proposing in terms of the improvement, and we have no
Right.
problem with them keeping those improvements on, where they are. And provided this layout is set, we don't have any issue providing that adjacent property owner an agreement that that clearly delineates that they have the ability to to keep those improvements there. And in terms of maintenance, obviously it's there, so we would just say that
Right.
they would have to maintain it. But it's more of a benefit for that adjacent property owner than it is for us.
Sure.
And just so that they're comfortable that what's there will be allowed to remain there.
Sure, I think I can see it on the site plan. I'm not sure what it is, if it's a deck or a patio, but it certainly doesn't interfere with your operation. So it's probably a good neighborly thing to do to work on something where they can maintain and keep it. Last question, on the site plan that you have up, you've got traffic arrows showing, you're coming in and you can go to the north along the side of the funeral home. You can turn down to the new parking lot that is two-way. I can't figure out, because at the bottom there on the south end, it just shows a one-way exit, kind of a circular. Where can you drive? I can't figure out how that works. That northerly pointing arrow, how do you get to that point? And can you come? Because it looks like it's a counterclockwise, circuitous parking arrangement, but then you have the one arrow going in the other direction.
Yep, I understand the question completely. The northbound arrow on the west side in the two-way aisle that you're referring to is for cars that would have been parked there. And so they can head back out that way.
Oh, I see, because then they could exit
That's
out right
right.
on the state there.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, cool. Thank you.
All right, thanks, John. Any other comments? Ma'am, were you done? I'm not sure if you had other comments.
I'd like to follow up on what John said with regard, getting back to the lighting again. One of the disadvantages, I agree that there are many advantages for the neighborhood in terms of moving the cars off their streets and allowing people to park on site. One of the things that could be a downside is that I have to admit I've only looked at the adjacent property, the 314, in daylight, but I imagine at night it's not particularly well lit, whereas a parking lot will be well lit. So there could be quite a bit more lights coming into those residences that are nearby. So I am interested in a lighting system that directs the light down to minimize spillover. And if your existing lights, the ones you plan to put here, would do that, I would just be in favor of the city's lights along the street, but not within the parking lot itself.
Okay. That's all. Michael?
And Mim, this is John, Commissioner Mead
John.
again.
Might as well follow up
For
on
Mim
that
to-
point.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, you can follow up on it. You got it.
Okay. I was just to clarify, Mim, you're saying that along the homes that are on Kane that back up to the new lot, your concern is light intrusion over the fence line there, and that the lights that are the city standard are more, they diffuse light in all directions versus the lights that are on site now that are more focused and down lights. So that might be more conducive to being along the neighbor line or the property line. Is that correct?
That's exactly what I'm saying, and then do the globe-type light along State Street.
I think I could embrace that.
All right,
Yeah, well, we'd be happy to do that, Commissioners.
all right, thank you. All right, Michael.
Yeah, just, and I guess I had a similar comment, regarding the concern about lights in the back of the property and transmitting light across onto other properties. And, I think it's a good idea to explore it on the, up towards State Street, but I guess I question, where do you put the lights? I mean, I look at this plan and it looks like there's one light about 20 feet maybe off the property line, and then the next one is quite a bit further back on the west side. So which lights is it, or do we create something that's I don't want to say artificial, but more purposeful to create a
line of lights along
an
that
appearance,
frontage.
right,
Yeah,
along
along that
of
frontage,
the
yeah.
lights along State Street. So I guess that was. I think it's a good idea. Just to think about how we'd have to do
We
it.
actually executed.
And then, the other comment I had was, regarding the setback, and, excuse me, I'm comfortable with it. I looked at it and said, well, if you took away those 7 parking spaces, you'd get very close to the required setback. And you'd probably address pretty close some of the other requirements, the landscaping, the impervious area, but I look at, the purpose to do it is to gain the parking. I think that's probably the, worth it, and given the way you're addressing it, with the landscaping, the wall, the fountain, it could otherwise be a minimally landscaped, just a deeper area. So I think I would be supportive of the setback. Thank you.
Adam, do you have anything?
You know what, I just have actually one question for staff. As far as, allowing, shrinking the setback, how does the expansion of East State Street over there, how does that affect the potential reduction in the setback? And if we were to expand East State Street, would that just take the parkway away and it would just minimize the parkway size, or?
I don't think there's any property being taken
No.
for this site.
Okay. That's all I had. I was just curious about that part.
Tim, I believe you're still with us. Do you have any comments?
I am. I concur in the conversation between Commissioners Evans and Mead with regard to the lighting. I think what they have proposed makes sense both aesthetically and in terms of particularly what Commissioner Evans said, is that the downward focusing lights in the back, which are rather dark, if you're not on State Street, gives it more light. I think that's really where you need, and that's where the currently non-conforming lighting, I think, would make more sense. And then the city required lighting up on State Street has that aesthetic continuity to it. So I concur in all of that. I think the setback, I can agree to that as well. There are other businesses nearby that have setbacks to that nature, and as was pointed out early, the property to the west is zoned for a different setback. So I think this is a reasonable request.
All right, thank you, Tim. Okay, I think that's all the questions we have at this point from the commissioners. So I'm going to open it up for public comment. There isn't anyone in City Hall to comment on this. So is there anyone virtually attending who would like to speak on this matter? If so, please raise your hand on the application. Okay, I'm being told there isn't anyone, so I'm going to try again. So is there anyone that's currently watching this online, remotely, who wishes to comment on this public hearing item? Please raise your hand on the application if you wish to comment. No? All right, so there aren't any public comments.
And Chairman, I would just like to add that we haven't received any other comments submitted through the website since the deadline at noon today.
Okay,
So the comments that are live on the website
are all the comments.
Are all current comments that we have on the project. Okay, very good, thank you. Okay, so, I don't know, if you want to sum up, or I think we're set. I don't think there are any other questions.
All right, great. Well, with that, Chairman, we appreciate your support. It's been a long-standing business. What he's trying to do is just make what's there a little bit better for, for the people that visit and also for the area residents. So we'd appreciate your support.
Right, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to propose we close the public hearing.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Celeste, please call the roll. I assume
Okay,
there's-
close the public hearing. Evans,
Evans, aye.
Madaskil,
Madaskil, aye.
Mead,
Mead, aye.
Slivka,
Slivka, aye.
Moran,
Moran, aye.
and Chairman Stocking.
Stocking, aye.
It passes.
So I have a
Okay.
closed public hearing.
One point of comment, Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Mead. I would propose that the third request listed on the first page, that when the motion is made, that we say we allow a deviation to the parking lot lighting standards for the interior lot standards, not along State Street. I think that would accurately reflect what I believe we were seeking and the applicant just agreed to. Does that make sense?
Does to me, whether staff agrees is another question.
I think it makes sense. I would also maybe suggest a condition of approval that a revised photometric plan be submitted to staff for review and approval, including those changes.
Okay.
It's only prudent, yep.
So I need to
Yes.
go to my- Just
Okay.
real quick.
Sure.
So that would be like one light or two lights, you're saying, just like along the street, right? That would run concurrent with the other lights, street lights.
Correct.
Correct.
So probably, would that be like two lights, you think, Dan?
Yeah, right now.
Yeah, that's fine. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah,
So,
Yep.
that's
but
what
where
we're-
would the
And-
lights
and-
go? Would they go like toward the street to stay with the street lights, or would
We'll
they
just
have
let
to?
staff figure that out with engineering.
Okay. Yeah, that's
Or they-
fine.
I think the
at the plan, it looks
I'm
photometric
sorry, I
plan, as approved by staff,
Okay.
Yeah, as
would
approved
end
by
up
staff.
dictating where the lights would go.
But it's probably gonna be like two lights on
Yeah, fine.
frontage
Okay. Thank
per
you.
whatever the city thinks is reasonable for that location.
Right. Okay. If there's any other discussion, I'm ready to make motions, but there might be other comments.
No, I mean, I think I'm generally in support. I mean, the special permit, yes. I mean, I think that's a proven business. It's been here for a long time. It's very well kept. It's a asset to the community. I don't have any problem with the special permit side of it and the variation. I mean, definitely, usually you're asking for the minimum amount. You didn't ask for the whole thing. You're building a wall. And the public is getting things like a removed curb cut and safer parking and not parking in the neighborhood. So the public's benefiting from the variance. You're asking for the minimum amount. It's not like it's, you do have some unique site characteristics on this, so the variations I don't necessarily have problems with either. That's my opinion. I don't know if the commissioners
Okay.
want to say anything else, but that's my opinion. All right, John.
Okay. All right, I think that the order of this, I will make a proposal on the variations and then on the light deviation and follow up with the final special use permit, if that makes sense to the staff.
Yes, John, that order sounds correct.
All right, awesome. Okay. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for variations to section 11-6F-4 lot and area requirements to reduce the street yard parking setback from 30 feet to 8.5 feet and to increase the lot coverage from 70% to 74.5% at 324 and 314 East State Street, subject to the findings of fact contained in the staff report.
Second, Evans?
Moved and seconded. Celeste, please call the roll.
Okay. Evans,
Evans, aye.
Madaskil,
Madaskil, aye.
Mead,
Mead, aye.
Slivka,
Slivka, aye.
Moran,
Moran, aye.
and Chairman Stocking.
Stocking, aye.
That passes.
Thank
right.
you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for relief from section 11-6E-4F to allow a deviation to the parking lot lighting standards in the East State Street corridor design guidelines for the interior lot light standards not along State Street at 314 East State and 324 East State, subject to the findings of fact contained in the staff report and further subject to a condition that a revised photometric plan be submitted to city staff for their approval.
Evans, second.
Moved and seconded. Celeste, please call the roll on that.
Okay. Evans,
Evans, aye.
Madaskil,
Madaskil, aye.
Mead,
Mead, aye.
Slivka,
Slivka, aye.
Moran,
Moran, aye.
and Chairman Stocking.
Stocking, aye.
That passes.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for a special use to allow the continued use of the property located at 324 East State Street as a funeral home and to expand the funeral home parking lot onto the property located at 314 East State Street, subject to the findings of fact contained in the staff report.
Second, Evans.
We don't have a motion that included the landscaping relief that was requested
I'm sorry?
For the minimum.
for the interior parking lot
For the
landscaping.
interior parking lot landscape.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see, that's not on the, but we can do that. So it's,
We need to do that.
I would like to withdraw that last motion and submit another motion that, let me just find it in the report, I'm sorry. Here we go. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to request relief from section 11-10-5C2A, required landscaping and screening to decrease the amount of
Okay,
interior.
I'll withdraw that.
I'm sorry.
Thanks. Keep going, John. It's just Celeste just broke in.
Okay, that's okay. I mean, to start over, or I'll just start over.
Just
Mr.
start
Chairman, I'd like to make a request for relief from section 11-10-5C2A, required landscaping and screening to decrease the amount of interior parking lot landscaping from 10% of the parking lot area to 4.3%, subject to the findings of fact contained in the staff report. This is in accordance with section 11-10-9 of the zoning ordinance.
Evans, second.
Okay, I believe that's the final variation. Okay. Celeste, please call the roll.
Okay. Evans,
Evans, aye.
Madaskil,
Madaskil, aye.
Mead,
Mead, aye.
Slivka,
Slivka, aye.
Moran,
Moran, aye.
and Chairman Stocking.
Stocking, aye.
That passes.
All right, now we can do the
Okay.
special permit.
There we go, and thank you, Mr. DeGroot, for catching that. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to request a special use to allow the continued use of the property located at 324 East State Street as a funeral home and to expand the funeral home parking lot onto the property located at 314 East State Street, subject to the findings of fact contained in the staff report.
Second, Evans.
It has been moved and seconded for the special use. Celeste, please call roll.
Okay, special use. Evans,
Evans, aye.
Madaskil,
Madaskil, aye.
Mead,
Mead, aye.
Slivka,
Slivka, aye.
Moran,
Moran, aye.
Chairman Stocking.
Stocking, aye.
That passes.
All right, that completes our hearing process. Clayton, when are they going to council?
So this recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission will go before City Council on Monday, August 2nd. It'll be here, held at City Hall in the council chambers at 7 o'clock.
All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Appreciate your time.
That's appropriate to say, but thank you very much.
Yep.
My elderly people will be happy for the
I
party.
bet.
Thank you.
Sure thing.
So,
Thank you. Yep.
great.
All right. First step, now you got the last step. Yep. Okay, so we have one more public hearing item on our agenda. It's 6B. It's text amendments, and it's amendment to Title 12 Subdivision, Chapter 4, Public Open Spaces, and Section 12-4-5-5 criteria for requiring cash contributions in lieu of land related to the fair market value per acre of land in the application of the City of Geneva. So this is something we revisit periodically. As our land values keep increasing, we need to make modifications, and I believe that's what David's going to go over with now.
Before I do that, I have just a few items to read into the record. We have the application for a text amendment filed by the Community Development Department, a certificate of publication from the Daily Herald for the legal notice that was published on July 7th, a copy of the appraisal prepared by C.A. Bruckner Associates, a report from the Community Development Department to the Planning and Zoning Commission dated July 22nd, 2021.
Fantastic.
So yes, this is kind of a housekeeping item. As you're aware, when we have residential developments through a subdivision or planned unit development, they are required to dedicate land or park, land for park and recreational purposes to the Geneva Park District, and land for school sites to the Geneva Community School District. If it's desired by the Park District or School District, the developer can make a cash contribution in lieu of the actual land dedication. It was back in 2017, city staff worked with the Park District and the School District to formulate amendments to our subdivision regulations, including an update of the current fair market value. Those amendments were recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission in January of 2018 and approved by Council in February of 2018. Prior to that update that set the current value at $275,000 per acre, the fair market value had not been updated since 2006. So with that update, we included language in the ordinance requiring that we revisit the fair market value and update it every 3 years. So this past June, we shared the cost with the Park District and School District and paid for the updated appraisal, which now sets the land value at $330,000 per acre. So that obviously means there would be an increase in cash contributions to the district if land is not desired. And I try to summarize what that means on a kind of a per unit basis on the bottom of page 2 of the staff report, and kind of give an example for each different development type. So a duplex that would have 2 bedrooms would see an increase to the school district of about $357 and to the Park District of $1,135. And then I've done that for each different development type: single family, attached or detached, rental units, or condominiums. There are some outstanding developments that would be impacted by this increase. The ordinance does require that you pay these contributions at the time of final plat unless otherwise approved by the districts. So we do have some developments that have allowed the fees to be paid at the time of permit. And when that is done, they're paying for the actual number of bedrooms that are being constructed for that unit, and they're also working under the existing ordinance of the current fair market value. So we have some incomplete developments that if this passes, when the new units come in, they would have to pay this higher fair market value than they did, than was in place when the development was approved.
Mhm.
Okay. So $330,000 an acre.
That's for improved property, utilities available,
Right.
That's pretty amazing.
pad ready, yeah.
And that was, the last assessment was $275,000 in 2018.
Correct.
Wow. Okay, well, I'm glad we do it every 3 years because.
Yep. Hey, David, this is Commissioner Mead. Can you help me read how to read the chart on the bottom of page 2? Did I just hear you say that's on a per unit basis, assuming typical density or something? Is that, how do you?
Yeah, so the left-hand column is the development type. We have different multipliers, population multipliers, depending on the development type.
Okay.
So like the 2 to 4 units would be 2 to 4 units. I used a 2-bedroom example, and what that, for that 1 2-bedroom unit, what the contribution would be.
Okay.
And then same 5+ rental would be an apartment building. So I looked at that as a 2-bedroom unit. The attached single family, a townhome or row home, a 3-bedroom unit. Detached, just a single family house, 3-bedroom unit. And then a condo, I used a 2-bedroom unit. So, and then I have the existing contributions proposed, and then the increase for
Yep.
each. Yeah.
Yep. I just needed to translate from the dark blue column to the others because I wasn't sure if that was per unit and how you got there, but I understand it's a different multiplier and different product type with a different multiplier. Thanks.
You're welcome.
I have a question. We're very interested in getting affordable housing, and continuing to increase these fees might discourage that. Do we give any breaks? Do we have the ability to give any reductions for someone who's coming in and wanting to provide affordable housing on these fees?
With the incentives that we passed a little over a year ago, we do have the ability to waive fees for affordable units, if that's the desire. We also have the ability to lower the fee on any request. If an applicant feels that the fee is too high, cost prohibitive, they can appeal to the city council, and then they can reduce the contribution by a supermajority vote.
Which they have in front of us. We've had a number of them. So.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dave, I had a question. This is Tim Moran. So the last time that the land contribution amount was calculated was 2018. So my question has to do with the appraisal, that the sales that are cited here are 2017 and 2018. So my question is, are there no sales after 2018 that would justify a 2021 increase from 275 to 330,000 per acre?
I don't know that I can answer that question, Tim. I would have to talk to our appraiser.
Okay, and it may be that because 2019, obviously, COVID rolled around and things took a tumble. There's just a question. I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
So I'm sorry. I'm looking at charts that show lot sales and home
Sure,
sales.
if you look at page 11, the 4 chosen comparables here are December 18, August 17, and June 17.
Okay.
And so my question is, in 2021, the appraisal establishes a value of 330,000, but there are no comparables after December 2018. And my question is, why is that?
I don't know.
Yeah,
Are
that is a
these-
very
are
good
these all
question. I think
Geneva
we should have
sites?
staff get us an answer on that one, Tim, because that kind of need that for support. Like why did it go up? Well, we got a section of the report that doesn't tell us why.
Yeah, and I just heard someone ask if these are all Geneva sites. Again, just looking at the 4 comparables on page 11. The answer to that is no. 2 are Geneva, 1 St. Charles, and 1's Batavia.
Yeah, and the one in St. Charles is along Brisher, so that's the apartments behind Lowe's, I believe. So, you know, I think being where we are, we have limited large tracts of land. There are some lot sales that go on from time to time, but there's not a ton of larger parcels that trade, frankly. So it's hard to probably gather a volume of sales transactions like that. I think each of these was adjusted up for time and size and up or down, and in shape and everything else to try to get to something more uniform.
Yeah, I think you're right, John. It might be just the fact that there just weren't any sales.
Right.
Because we
Right.
have such a limited number of possible sales within the community, but it would be nice to know that's the case, and it's just not an oversight.
Right, and if you look at page 13, you can see where they've adjusted those 4 sales. They've adjusted them for property rights. None of them were adjusted. None of them were adjusted for financing, but they all were adjusted for date of sale, either up 9 to 12% because of the date of sale. And they probably just took, and I would hope there's some background there in the appraisers' data that show that land prices in general in the Chicago area or Illinois or Midwest or whatever rose at a certain level. So it's pulling from a greater basis to extrapolate that for our subject locale.
And John, I just, if you look at page 6, and the reason this caught my attention is that at the top, what it says is sale velocity and pricing increased in 2013 and continue to do so through 2020. Sales and pricing are back to pre-recessionary levels in Geneva and St. Charles. So that seems somewhat contradictory
Yeah.
to say that sales are back up to the level, but you're only citing or 2018 sales.
If they would have ended after 2020, if they would have put parentheses, most recent sale was 2018, that would have not begged the question then. But they didn't. There is a disconnect between that and the data they show. I would agree.
Okay, so David, did you get our questions?
I do.
Okay, so I think David's got the questions. We'll get some answers in the next meeting, but I mean, obviously a significant increase, and I think we better have our numbers and ducks in a row for that, because it's going up quite a bit. Any other comments, questions on this item? I think we'll just extend the public hearing, to the next meeting, whatever the next meeting is. Do we have any items coming up, or should we just?
It might make sense to get the appraiser, ask that question to the appraiser himself or herself, I can't remember, and they would be able to address that, David. Just
Indeed.
Yeah, I mean, it's not fair to staff. Staff's just sending the report and putting it in front of us. He didn't do the report, so.
Our next meeting is scheduled for August 12th, and I believe we'll have some items.
Okay, so we can put this on the agenda?
Yeah. If not, we'll have another meeting on August 26th.
Okay, so let's aim for August 12th. Is that sufficient, David? to get
that
the
should be
answers?
fine.
Okay, so.
okay, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we continue this public hearing to the next scheduled plan commission on Thursday, August 12th.
Madaskil,
Second, Moran.
Okay, Tim beat you to the punch.
Sorry about that.
All right, that's the joys of the virtual meeting. Celeste, call the roll, please.
Okay, to continue,
To August 12th.
Evans,
Evans, aye.
Madaskil,
Madaskil, aye.
Mead,
Mead, aye.
Slivka,
Slivka, aye.
Moran,
Moran, aye.
and Chairman Stocking.
Stocking, aye.
It passes.
All right, so we'll revisit that on the 12th. Next time on the agenda is any public comment. Since it's virtual, I gotta go through that checkbox. So anybody online who has any public comment for the commission at this time? Zero. Okay. So then it's up to other business. What else we got going on?
We're starting to pick up on applications, so we should have a busy second half of 2021.
Say that was an understatement. You handled that well.
Yeah.
We are slammed right now.
Thank God he's here. Thank God he's here. Otherwise, we'd be like,
So yeah,
pull a zero.
so we're expecting some variations. We also have the DARA, a semi-truck repair facility
Okay, it's
application.
finally coming forward.
Yeah, that should be coming soon. And we got in maybe 3 or 4 applications just this week. So we'll have to dissect through those, but
It's gonna take a while.
yeah, so, but we hear of more coming. Just chatting with the public, different variations, different ongoing projects, so we know they're coming, we just don't know when, so.
Okay. Meeting regular then.
Question, you guys. 2 things. Is the sale of Emma's Landing scheduled still for this month? I think it was supposed to be last week or this week.
It is still scheduled. It did not happen on the 14th. It had to be kicked back. I believe it's till the 28th now is the
Okay,
tentative date.
okay. And then I heard, just someone mentioned to me, they heard there was an issue with Dunkin' Donuts. Is there anything that rises to the city staff level?
Yeah, I mean,
That-
we've been working with them to complete the remaining items to hopefully get the place open. We had a punch list of maybe 15 or 16 items, and they've been working through those over the past few weeks.
No, but that's it's still moving forward, albeit slow.
Yes, sir.
Like a glacier. But it's
Iced
good.
coffee.
They're engaged. That's good. So. All right. I don't think I have anything. Anybody else have anything they want to talk about?
We covered the Verizon withdrawal.
We did not, but we can
So-
mention that.
Details.
If you hadn't heard, they withdrew the application instead of taking it forward to council for a final vote. And they're going to regroup and see if they can either revise and resubmit their application or find an alternative site.
Okay.
Okay. It's a lot for not having your ducks lined up. But that's the way the world works right now, so. All right. Anything else? Yeah.
Move to adjourn.
All right, thanks.